Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between a life controlled by fear and a life controlled by you. Most people never understand this. They hold on to weakness. They make deals with their fears. They protect their old habits like a prison they've decorated with comfort. But you're here because something inside you is waking up. Something that refuses to stay small. You've felt it. That pressure in your chest. That quiet voice telling you, stop living like prey. That's the beginning of your transformation. The moment you decide to detach from who you used to be, from the softness, the excuses, and the emotional weight pulling you down, you begin to rise. Today you build an inner fortress, a mind untouched by doubt, untouched by fear, untouched by the weakness of the world. A mind sharpened like a blade, a mind that shapes reality in your favor. This is the Machiavellian mode, where your old identity dies and your real self begins to rise. If you're ready to step into power, say it with conviction. I rise above myself. Now let's begin. 1. Burn the old self. Understand this before anything changes. The person you were yesterday is not qualified to lead you into the life you want tomorrow. Your old self was built from fear, shaped by weakness, and trained by habits that made you predictable, controllable, and harmless. That version of you cared too much about approval, felt too deeply, hesitated too often, and surrendered too quickly. But now you stand at the edge of a new path, a path where you detach from everything that once controlled you. Weak emotions? Cut them. Fearful thoughts? Cut them. Old habits? Cut them. A Machiavellian mind does not negotiate with its past. It destroys it and rebuilds a sharper identity. This is where you create your inner fortress, not from comfort, but from clarity, discipline, and ruthless self-honesty. When something threatens your peace, you remove it. When someone plays with your energy, you take it back. When a habit weakens you, you replace it with one that strengthens you. You don't wait for change, you enforce it. Say it now so it becomes real. My old self is dead. 2. Detach from fear and claim your power. Fear was created to keep you alive, not to keep you small. But most people misuse it and become prisoners in their own minds. They let fear decide every move, every choice, every dream they never chased, and every version of themselves they never became. But you are stepping into a new psychological territory now, a Machiavellian territory where fear is not an enemy, but a tool, a signal, a compass pointing toward the growth you've been avoiding. When fear shows up, you no longer run. You examine it. You question it. You expose its weakness. Most fears collapse the moment you confront them with a disciplined mind. Fear thrives in imagination but dies in action. Every step forward, every challenge you face, every time you refuse to bow to the emotional noise inside you, you take back territory that fear once owned. This is how you become untouchable. Not by pretending fear doesn't exist, but by mastering the psychology behind it. A strong mind does not destroy fear. It commands it. It bends it. It uses it. And the moment you detach from the emotional reaction fear tries to trigger, you become someone the world cannot intimidate or manipulate. People will feel this shift. They'll notice your silence, your clarity, your controlled intensity. You are no longer someone who second-guesses life. You are becoming someone who walks into uncertainty with a steady gaze and an unshakable core. Say it now. Fear obeys me now. 3. Break the chains of old habits. Old habits are invisible chains that trap powerful men in weak lives. And the most dangerous part is how familiar and comfortable they feel. They disguise themselves as routine, as personality, as this is just who I am. But in reality, They are psychological traps designed to keep you predictable and powerless. Every time you repeat a habit that drains you, procrastination, overthinking, self-doubt, endless scrolling, giving attention to people who don't deserve it, you reinforce the identity of your weaker self. And that old identity must die. A Machiavellian mind does not tolerate habits that slow down its rise. It studies them like a strategist watching an enemy, seeing their patterns, their triggers, their timing, and then destroying them with cold precision. Understand this. Habits are not broken by motivation. They are replaced by stronger rituals that reshape the structure of your mind. When you wake up early with discipline, when you choose silence instead of reacting emotionally, when you train your body, sharpen your skills, study power, and build a routine that chooses strength over comfort, you send a message to your subconscious. We are not who we used to be. And the subconscious listens. Your brain rewires. Your actions shift. Your standards rise. This is how powerful men are built. Not with luck, not with emotion, but through the ruthless removal of patterns that weaken them. You don't need inspiration. You need structure. You don't need positivity. You need control. You don't need to feel ready. You need to act like the man you plan to become. Old habits will try to pull you back because they fear their own death. They will whisper excuses, tempt you with comfort, and distract you with what feels familiar. But every time you refuse, every time you move forward anyway, every time you choose strength over softness, you crush the identity that once held you down. This is psychological warfare against your old self. And you must win. Say it. My habits now serve my power. 4. Build the unbreakable inner fortress. An unbreakable inner fortress isn't built from motivation, emotions, or short bursts of confidence. It is built from discipline, clear thinking, and the refusal to let the world shape your mind. Most people walk through life with minds made of glass, fragile, reactive, and easily shattered by opinions, rejection, failure, or discomfort. But you are not here to live like them. You are here to build something far stronger, a psychological fortress that no insult, betrayal, circumstance, or enemy can break. To build this fortress, you must first understand that your mind is the most valuable territory you will ever rule, and every thought you allow inside either strengthens your walls or weakens them. Weak people let everything in: fear, gossip, drama, doubt, noise, useless emotions, and the opinions of people who have achieved nothing. A Machiavellian mind lets in only what helps it rise. Your fortress begins with mental independence. Not physical loneliness, but the ability to think for yourself, decide for yourself, and move in your own direction. Once you master this, you become immune to outside influence because your validation comes from strategy, not approval. Next comes emotional discipline. This is where most men lose. They react too fast, speak too soon, trust too easily, and expose too much. But a fortress-minded man speaks less, observes more, and calculates before acting. He never allows his emotions to reveal his weaknesses. Every reaction is intentional. Every movement is deliberate. Every word is chosen with purpose. Then comes habitual strength, the daily rituals that build your mental armor. Discipline hardens the mind like fire hardens steel. Training the body builds resilience. Reading sharpens intellect. Silence strengthens focus. Execution builds confidence. These are the bricks, the steel, the foundation of your inner fortress. But a fortress also needs defenses, boundaries. You must protect your time, your energy, your attention, and your emotions. Most people feel weak because they give everyone unlimited access to their mind. Your fortress is only as strong as the doors you keep closed. The final layer is self-respect. A man who respects himself cannot be controlled. He does not settle. He does not beg. He does not accept disrespect, manipulation, or chaos. He removes anything that threatens the empire he is building inside. This is the mindset that makes you untouchable. This is the architecture of a mind no one can conquer. When your fortress is complete, life no longer happens to you. It happens because of you. Say it, and let it carve itself into your subconscious. My mind is my kingdom, and I protect it with power. The more you master this discipline, the more your life begins to shift in your favor. You stop chasing validation and start producing results. You stop responding to negativity and focus only on progress. You stop letting emotions control your direction and instead let strategy guide you like a compass. And once this becomes natural, no one can pull you into chaos, because chaos no longer has access to your mind. If you understand this evolution, comment, I awaken my inner power. Number 4, the cold rise of inner dominance. There comes a stage in a man's growth when he stops negotiating with his limits, stops entertaining excuses, and stops accepting the soft illusions that kept him tame. This is the stage where inner dominance rises like a cold fire inside the mind, reshaping the way you think, move, and operate. Inner dominance has nothing to do with controlling others. It's about mastering yourself so completely that nothing outside of you can pull you away from your direction, discipline, or purpose. Most people live like leaves in the wind, blown around by emotions, opinions, fears, and impulses. But a Machiavellian mind understands this. The man who controls himself becomes the man who controls the environment. When you stop letting temporary feelings shape permanent decisions, you begin thinking like a strategist instead of a reactor. You start facing every problem with the mindset of, how do I turn this into an advantage, instead of, why is this happening to me? That single shift separates you from the 90% of men who fall apart when pressure rises. True inner dominance begins the moment you take full responsibility for your life. Not to blame yourself, but to empower yourself. Because when you take responsibility, you take power. You stop wasting time blaming people or circumstances. Instead, you study them. You learn from them. And you adapt with a cold efficiency that intimidates those who still rely on excuses to explain their stagnation. You begin to move with a calm, grounded energy that silently communicates. You cannot control me. You cannot persuade me. You cannot soften me. You become deliberate with your time, intentional with your words, strategic with your actions. Your energy no longer leaks into distractions, drama, or emotional nonsense. You start investing your strength only where it multiplies, not where it drains. And slowly, the world reacts. People who once underestimated you begin watching with caution. People who once thought they influenced you now realize you've outgrown their tactics. People who once fed on your softness now see that you've rebuilt yourself into someone harder to break and impossible to manipulate. Inner dominance turns you into a man who never broadcasts his moves, never panics under pressure, never collapses under judgment. Your silence becomes heavier. Your focus becomes sharper. Your ambition becomes colder. You move like a man who knows exactly where he's going and refuses to be slowed down. When you carry yourself like this, opportunity is drawn to you. Respect follows you. Weakness avoids you. A man with inner dominance does not chase power. He becomes power. If you understand this transformation and are ready to embody it fully, comment, I awaken my inner power. Number 5, the ascent into unbreakable power. The path to unshakable strength begins the moment you stop living like a spectator in your own life and start operating like a calculated force determined to shape reality instead of simply reacting to it. Because every man who rises from ordinary to formidable understands one truth. Power is never given. Power is taken through intention discipline, and ruthless honesty with yourself. This stage of your evolution requires you to remove every illusion that kept you comfortable. Because comfort is the silent enemy that convinces you to stay weak, predictable, and easy to control. A Machiavellian mind moves differently. It studies patterns, reads intentions, anticipates threats, and chooses actions based on outcomes, not emotions. This is the point where you begin building the cold, unshakable structure of mental dominance, a structure that cannot be broken by rejection, betrayal, pressure, or failure. Instead of falling apart, you adapt. Instead of complaining, you calculate. Instead of seeking approval, you chase results. And the moment you shift from depending on the outside world to depending on your inner authority, you enter a level of life most people cannot follow, because reaching this level requires a discipline that terrifies the undisciplined. This is the moment when your strength stops being potential and becomes identity. Your mind grows colder, your focus grows sharper, your presence grows heavier. People begin to notice your detachment, not because you lack emotion, but because you've outgrown the need to react to every emotion that moves through you. Your self-respect rises as you begin setting boundaries with a calm but firm certainty that shocks those who once benefited from your softness. You no longer explain yourself to people who haven't earned access to your mind. You no longer chase validation from people who don't respect themselves. You detach, not to appear strong, but to stay loyal to your mission. Every day you operate from this mindset, you build mental armor that cannot be pierced by manipulation, jealousy, judgment, or pressure. Your growth becomes silent, your progress becomes constant, and your confidence becomes something you don't need to talk about, because it now speaks for you. People begin treating you differently because your energy makes it clear. You are no longer the man they once knew. You walk with direction. You work with intensity. You think with precision. You become the man who plans 3 steps ahead while everyone else reacts to the present moment. This is the birth of real power, the moment you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself orders. And at this level, your presence alone demands respect. People can feel the discipline in your eyes, the certainty in your posture, and the clarity in your decisions. This is how a man becomes untouchable, by mastering himself so completely that nothing external can steer him off his path. If you understand this path and you're ready to walk it with unbreakable resolve, comment, "I awaken my inner power." Number 6, the birth of the untouchable mind. True mental sovereignty begins when a man decides to take back control over his inner world with a level of discipline so cold that even his past self would not recognize him. Most people never reach this level because they let emotions, fears, and outside noise guide their lives. But an untouchable mind is born the moment you stop letting the world pull your strings. When you start examining your habits, impulses, and weaknesses with ruthless honesty, you begin breaking every psychological chain that once kept you average. This honesty hurts, but pain is the sculptor of power. It shapes you into someone who no longer breaks under pressure, but sharpens beneath it. A man becomes untouchable when he stops running from discomfort and uses it as fuel to forge a stronger identity. You begin seeing life as a battlefield where victory belongs not to the loud or emotional, but to the disciplined strategist who controls his reactions. To develop this control, you must remove old habits that drained your strength and replace them with consistent actions that serve your higher purpose. Discipline becomes your greatest weapon, because a man who disciplines himself becomes immune to manipulation. When you control your habits, you control your direction. When you control your direction, you control your destiny. The untouchable mind is built through repetition, reflection, and relentless refinement of your inner world. You begin cutting off distractions without apology because anything that weakens your focus becomes an enemy of your evolution. You stop engaging in pointless conversations, weak friendships, and emotional traps that once stole your energy. Your vision becomes clearer as your mind becomes quieter and silence becomes your strategic advantage. In silence, you learn to think deeper, anticipate threats earlier, and identify opportunities faster. This clarity separates you from men who operate on impulse and emotions because you now operate on logic and intention. An untouchable mind does not seek validation, it seeks mastery. It does not react quickly, it reacts wisely. It does not collapse under judgment, it becomes sharper because of it. When you no longer fear being misunderstood, you gain a freedom that terrifies those who depend on approval. This freedom strengthens your presence, making your silence more powerful than other people's arguments. You begin moving with a confidence built on proof, not ego. You see that the world respects the disciplined, not the dramatic. People start treating you differently because they sense you have stepped into a higher level of self-command. Your boundaries become firmer, your standards become higher, and your tolerance for weakness within yourself becomes non-existent. You stop explaining yourself because a man with purpose does not need to justify his direction. You walk away from anything that disrupts your peace or slows your progress. As your mental strength grows, so does your ability to remain calm in situations that would break the majority. Calmness becomes your weapon because chaos cannot control a man who is anchored within himself. Your emotional detachment strengthens not from coldness, but from clarity. You learn to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. This awareness protects you from manipulation because intention becomes visible to you long before actions reveal it. You stop falling for empty promises, fake loyalty, and emotional performances. You recognize patterns instantly, and this ability makes you dangerously perceptive. An untouchable mind sees further, reacts slower, and thinks deeper than the average person. You begin living in a state of quiet observation, conserving energy for things that matter. You speak less, but mean more. You act less impulsively, but accomplish more consistently. You chase fewer things, but attract more opportunities. This is the paradox of power. The less you need the world, the more the world responds to you. As you continue developing this mindset, solitude becomes not loneliness, but empowerment. You learn to enjoy your own presence because your mind has become a place of strength instead of chaos. In this solitude, your goals crystallize, your purpose intensifies, and your self-respect multiplies. You start The man who speaks only when his words matter holds a different kind of power. People fear the man whose silence forces them to face their own insecurity. Influence grows not from noise, but from the tension created by your quiet presence. The silent man becomes the center of every room, drawing attention without effort. His energy reflects people back to themselves, revealing weakness in the insecure and inspiring strength in those ready to grow. But to influence without permission, you need something deeper. You must live with standards that others feel naturally compelled to respect, even if they never admit it. When your actions show discipline, people raise their behavior around you. When your boundaries are firm, people act more carefully in your presence. When your time is protected, people treat it with more value. These are not spoken rules. They are unspoken laws created through the consistency of your character. And the more consistent you stay, the stronger your influence becomes. Quietly, steadily, powerfully. But to influence without asking, you must fully detach from the need to be liked. Wanting to be liked weakens your presence, softens your edge, and drains your power. When you seek approval, you shift from leader to performer. When you fear disapproval, you shift from strategist to pleaser. And when your emotional stability depends on acceptance, you become easy to control. The man who influences without asking does not reshape himself to satisfy expectations. He does not shrink to avoid judgment. He does not apologize for his strength or dim his presence to make others comfortable. He walks with the confidence of a man who can stand alone. And because he can stand alone, others want to stand with him. Influence grows when you don't need it. Influence strengthens when you don't chase it. Influence becomes unavoidable when you live at a standard others wish they could reach. This is why your silence has power. It comes from fullness, not insecurity. You are not quiet because you fear speaking. You are quiet because you know true influence comes from presence, not performance. And the more you build that presence, calm, steady, unhurried, the more the world adjusts itself around you. You speak less and understand more. You demand less and receive more. You push less and accomplish more. You become the force that shapes outcomes without raising your voice, the man whose presence alone influences decisions, emotions, and dynamics. This is the purest form of silent power, the invisible authority that makes people feel your influence without you ever asking for it. If you understand this shift, comment, "I influence without asking." Silent power reaches its highest point when you stop trying to win battles, impress crowds, or defeat opponents. The man who rises without noise becomes untouchable, not because he fights harder, but because he evolves beyond the need to fight at all. You rise by outgrowing the insecurities that once made you reactive and the emotions that once controlled you. You outgrow the parts of yourself that once made you predictable, and the people who once had access to parts of you they never earned. Rising is not about putting yourself above others. It is about rising above your old self, above the chaos that used to pull you into useless arguments, above the validation that once controlled your choices, above the fears that once weakened your resolve. When you rise quietly, your transformation becomes impossible to ignore. People feel it before they understand it. They sense the shift in your energy, the calm certainty, the steady movements, the sharper awareness, the refusal to involve yourself in anything that does not match your purpose. You stop explaining your decisions because your results speak for you. You stop defending your boundaries because your silence explains everything. You stop justifying your growth because your presence makes explanation unnecessary. This is when you become untouchable. Not because you are cold, but because you have mastered internal control. Your emotions listen to you. Your mind follows you. Your time belongs to you. And once a man reaches this level of control, the world can no longer shake him. People who once intimidated you now feel small around you. Situations that once stressed you now feel simple. Conflicts that once dragged you in now fade before they reach you. This is the reward for choosing silence over ego, discipline over impulse, and strategy over reaction. But silent ascension comes with a cost. You will outgrow people who cannot evolve with you. You will detach from distractions that once entertained you. You will leave behind habits that once brought comfort. You will turn down opportunities that do not support your purpose. Every new level demands that an old version of you must die. And if you fight this inner death, you block your own growth. But once you accept it, once you release the weaker layers, the insecure layers, the reactive layers, you rise naturally. You move into a level where very few men operate, a level where your strength cannot be challenged, your presence cannot be ignored, and your mind cannot be reached by negativity. This is the silent throne you build inside yourself. A throne no one can remove because no one helped you create it. You became powerful by choosing yourself. You became untouchable by mastering silence. And you became dominant by refusing to let the world shape your identity. If you understand this final stage, comment, "I ascend in silence." Like the video, subscribe to Machiavellian Mode, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next step in your transformation. This kind of influence makes people respond to you without you ever asking for it. If you understand the power of this transformation, comment, "I influence without asking." Number 10. Silent ascension that makes you untouchable. Silent power reaches its peak when you stop trying to win every battle, impress everyone, or defeat others. The man who rises quietly becomes untouchable, not by force, but by evolution. You grow by outgrowing the insecurities that once made you reactive, the emotions that once made you predictable, and the people who once had access to parts of you they did not deserve. Ascension is not about being above others. It is about rising above your old self, above the chaos that used to drag you into pointless arguments, above the need for approval that once controlled your decisions, above the fears that once weakened your resolve. When you rise in silence, your transformation becomes undeniable. People feel it before they understand it. They notice the difference in your energy, the calm decisiveness, the precise movements, the sharpened awareness, the refusal to engage in anything beneath your purpose. You no longer explain your choices. Your results speak for themselves. You no longer justify your boundaries. Your silence becomes their explanation. You no longer defend your growth. Your presence makes defense unnecessary. This is when you become untouchable. Not because you are cold or distant, but because you have mastered internal sovereignty. Your emotions obey you. Your mind listens to you. Your time belongs only to you. When a man reaches this level of control, the world loses the ability to shake him. People who once intimidated you now feel small in your presence. Situations that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. Conflicts that once drew you in now dissolve before they reach you. This is the reward for choosing silence over ego, discipline over impulse, and strategy over reaction. But understand this. Silent ascension requires sacrifice. You will outgrow people who cannot follow you. You will detach from distractions that once entertained you. You will leave behind habits that once comforted you. You will reject opportunities that do not align with your purpose. Every stage of growth demands that an older version of yourself dies. If you resist this, you resist your own evolution. Once you accept it, once you let go of the weaker, insecure, and reactive layers, you rise effortlessly. You ascend into a league where very few men operate. A league where your strength cannot be questioned, your presence cannot be ignored, and your mind cannot be invaded. This is the silent throne you build within yourself. A throne no one can overthrow, because no one helped you build it. You became powerful by choosing yourself. You became untouchable by mastering silence. You became dominant by refusing to let the world define you. If you understand this final evolution, comment, "I ascend in silence."